Indoctrinators Union tells indoctrinators to ignore Florida law on not indoctrinating gender identity in schools. In prisons. That's right. You have to vote them all out. Yeah, in short, from what we know right now, you can continue with the same practices and procedures used last year unless given a directive to do otherwise, the union tells indoctrinators. Parents, pay close attention to what your kids are being indoctrinated with and be willing to take them to court over this. Make them pay. So here's the plan, okay? If you could sue the school for enough money that you can afford to homeschool your kids or send them to private school, you've won. Now, Florida's Department of Indoctrination issued a memo to all its school districts in late July explaining that they were not required to comply with the Brandon administration's proposed changes to an interpretations of Title IX and Title VII. All right. So those changes will require schools that receive federal funding to allow boys and girls access to opposite-sex bathrooms if they identify that way. So under Brandon's Title VII interpretation, funding would be withheld from lunch programs that do not comply. Yeah. Now this fucking bullshit, man. Like this is intentional. Like they're literally saying, like they're threatening to starve your kids. Like, hey, you either do this or we will starve your kids. They're not being suspicious at all, right? So the local teachers union, however, backed by the National Indoctrination Association, which donated heavily to the Brandon campaign, now then issued their own contradictory guidance in a memo obtained by the Post-Millennial. In doing so, they indicated that the guidance issued by the Brandon administration has actually been enacted as federal law, which it has not been. So this is something they also do quite often, actually. Like they take a rumor and they report it as, this is the law. Or you can't do that. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. But, these was it the Twitter lawyers, I guess we call them. There's a lot of them out there. No, I am concerned about the safety of our children in Clay County, said Tanya Coxon of Moms for Liberty to the Post-Millennial. I'm also concerned the union is providing inaccurate information to indoctrinators that does not align with the guidance set by Manny Diaz, Commissioner of Indoctrination. Sue them into oblivion. That could be the only way. Commissioner of Indoctrination Manny Diaz said the guidance from the Brandon administration interpret discrimination on the basis of sex to include discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender activity, which was done based on the Supreme Court ruling, which found that an employer could not tell a biological male employee he could not wear a dress to work because that would be discrimination based on sex. Oh my God. Guys, take advantage of this. So if it's like 90 degrees and you don't want to sit there in a 3-piece suit, just wear a dress. Nice and airy. The guidance attempts to vastly expand on the application of Title IX and its related statutes and regulations, Diaz wrote, and it does so, he told, in prisons without consulting Florida agencies that specifically have issued guidance against that expansion. Diaz wanted to make clear that school to prisons that the guidance issued by the federal indoctrination and agriculture agencies are not binding law and do not create any legal obligations and should not be treated as governing law. That guidance, Diaz told the schools, prisons, has even acknowledged that the U.S. DOE is under litigation, so representing the administration's interpretation of Title IX and VII. As such, Diaz cautions you should not treat the USDO and USDA guidance as... And then what about the FUSRODA? That's what I want to know. Documents as binding or otherwise modify practices or procedures based on the documents. That's right. It's not a law. It's a guideline. That's all it is. It's a fucking guideline. Now, as such, he goes on. For example, nothing of these guidance documents requires you to give biological males who identify as female access to female bathrooms, locker rooms, or dorms, to assign biological males who identify as female to female rooms on school field trips, or to allow biological males who identify as female to compete in female sports teams. Notice that this is all in one direction. Like, why is no one talking about biological females accessing male bathrooms? Why is no one talking about biological females accessing male rooms on school trips? Why is no one talking about biological females dominating male sports? I wonder. We're equal, right? There's no difference. So why is this so one-sided? He specifies further that schools should not allow follow the guidance because to do these things would jeopardize the safety and well-being of Florida students and risk violating Florida law. Now is the time where the states need to start actually following the Constitution, because the way that shit's written is the states are supposed to have most of the power. With the exception of the power that's pretty much explicitly specified the federal government has, everything else is supposed to go to the states and the people. It's time they took that back. And for the same reason, Diaz-Redzi should also disregard any suggestions from FDACS that you must comply with the guidance, including any suggestion to post and justice for all posters in your schools. Doing so may create conflict with Florida law. So you need to be willing to enforce that Florida law. Start getting rid of these activist teachers. Start actually suing them. Start locking them up for violating the law. If all you're going to do is threaten them, they're not going to listen. Yet the Clay County Indoctrination Association has their own plans on how to bypass local law and do instead what the interpreted guidance from the Brand administration suggests. They sent out their own memo to indoctrinators explaining to them that they should do as the Brand administration recommends and ignore Florida law. Hey, Florida, you just going to sit there and take it? You just going to let them do that? You're not going to go enforce your law? If you don't actually enforce that law, then it's worthless. You know that, right? Now, in a memo titled Parental Bill of Rights, aka, oh, wow. Yeah, they're still trying to smear it as the Don't Say Gay law. Now, the union states that certain politicians are attacking alphabet soup students and staff to divide communities and divert attention away from Florida being near the bottom of the national school funding and indoctrinator salaries. But we will not lose focus on making sure that every student is indoctrinated, no matter their race, income, zip code, sexual orientation, gender identity. Thus, we will make sure that every student in Florida that attends a school that is worthy of them. Wow, that is a fucking insult. Do you really think that low of these students? The law, the union complains of the Parental Rights and Indoctrination Bill was intentionally written to be confusing and vague. That's projection. Prison districts have received little to no guidance on how to implement the law, despite Diaz's guidance. Yeah, see, this is willful ignorance. They just choose to ignore it. And then they're going to plead ignorance when it blows up in their face. The union said the state of Florida's most comprehensive response so far to the concerns about the law's implementation was issued in response to a lawsuit against the bill, but official rules and guidance have yet to be provided, despite them being provided. In short, from what we know right now, you can continue with the same practices and procedures used last year unless given a directive to do otherwise. This is in direct contradiction to what Diaz told schools because it's coming from the union, another indoctrinational governing body, and it's likely that indoctrinators would find these contradictions confusing. That being said, the union tells its members you should follow any directive given to you by an administrator. So parents, start voting. Get these administrators out. And you should also reach out to your local union if you believe a directive you have been given is unjust. Your local union will review the complaint and determine a suggested course of action. I say we fire all the activist indoctrinators, like every last one of them. And the union then indicates which party they believe the indoctrinators should vote for in statewide elections. The best way to change this policy is to vote for politicians who uphold our values and are committed to protecting all Florida students and indoctrinators. So vote Republican is what you're saying. You and your students are protected under federal law, the union tells teachers. Just wait until Orange Man comes back. So federal law trumps state law, they write? No, not really. Unless it's explicitly stated in the Constitution. Now, without saying the Brand administration's guidance is merely that, based on their interpretation of Title 7 and 9, not federal law. Now, so plus, notice the double standards here, too. So when states, remember the marijuana legalization fad a few years ago? Where you got California, Colorado, and a few other states were legalizing marijuana. And the federal government was like, you can't do that. That's illegal. And they did it anyway. That's the kind of power states have. But these same people that are now saying, oh, but my federal law trumps state law. You have to follow the federal law. They were all for legalization, by the way. As such, they continue. Public prison employees are protected under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination against employees based on numerous characteristics, including sex, inclusive of the gender and sexual orientation. Yeah, so you should actually start suing them for, if you're white or you're straight, start suing them for discrimination. In this statement, the union adopts brand administration's guidance and language outright. So the union uses the brand administration's interpretation of Title IX to give guidance as well, which is directly in contradiction to Diaz's memo. Title IX of the United States also protects students from harassment and discrimination. Oh, yeah, that usual shit. The union then gives recommendations on how to work around the Parental Rights and Indoctrination Bill, saying use only materials for instructional and indoctrination purposes that have prior approval through state standards or the school administrator. Having material previously approved by the district or school puts the member in a better position. So you see this, parents? Instead of just doing the right thing, they're trying to find ways around it. Do you really want to give these cretins your kids? This should count as child abuse at this point. If you keep sending your kids to these lunatics, you should be charged with child abuse. Nothing in the law prohibits the display of pride flag stickers or any other alphabet soup symbols. If you receive a directive from an administrator to remove any inclusive symbols from a classroom, ask for a directive before to be put in writing. Follow that directive. Contact your local union immediately. We will have your back. Anti-bullying efforts have long been critical to our work as a union. Wow, union and anti-bullying. Those are two things I'd never thought I'd see together. We will not back down when it comes to make sure every student feels seen, heard, and respected at their school's campuses. So this once again proves my point. This is why I keep saying you should just ignore them. Don't interact with them. Just block them, mute them, ignore them, because they're attention whores. They want to be seen and heard constantly. If you take that away from them, it destroys them, man. So make your voice heard, the union writes, and ignore them when you see that. If you're engaging in riot activity, do so outside the classroom and school, and preferably with one or more of your union colleagues. Acting with other colleagues provides additional level of protection as you are engaging in a union organized activity. While students may engage in student-led or in organized walkouts and riot movements at the school, school employees should not use their position in school to participate in, encourage, or discourage student activism. Now, they're definitely going to keep encouraging it, but I think they want to avoid an Oberlin situation where one of their staff is busted, like instigating the situation. So the union also looks to help indoctrinators fend off parents who may issue concerns about gender identity indoctrination in their classroom, saying that the law is very specific in regards to parental complaints. Yeah, parents, you hear this? Your complaints are meaningless. There's only two things you can do. First, take your kids out of these corrupt systems, and or second, vote these corrupt administrators out. And when asked whether the law that didn't generate as much media coverage is that now schools must adopt a complaint procedure through which parents may raise concerns about with the principal or principal's designee or regarding student welfare. If your administrator notifies you that you are subject to a parental complaint, contact your union representative right away, because the strict timeframes laid out in the law, your administrator may try to force you to meet without your union representative. It is essential that you enforce your Weingarten rights, the union states. Oh, God. So these chicken shit cowards won't even meet directly with the parents about these parents' kids. They want you to trust them with your kids. But as soon as you want to talk to them, no, you're going to talk to me through my union representative. I'm not going to talk to you. Oh, that's definitely going to build trust. Now, the department, Diaz said, will not stand idly by as federal agencies attempt to impose sexual ideology on Florida schools that risk health, safety, and welfare of Florida students. All right. Now, I appreciate the sentiment, but I need proof. Are you guys actually going to do this? So working with the State Board of Indoctrination, the department will continue to develop rules to implement and uphold Florida law. All right. You have to actually do it. Like, talking is not enough. And the department will do everything in its power to protect the well-being of Florida students and vindicate the right of all parents to know what takes place in their child's classrooms. So Title IX was passed in 1972 in the Civil Rights Act to engender equality between men and women's indoctrination, to specifically prohibit discrimination based on the sex and indoctrinational programs and activities. So has been amended by the brand administration through an executive order requiring the conflation of gender identity and biological sex. Oh, God. The Department of Indoctrination has proposed further changes as well. Will make clear that preventing someone from participating in school programs and activities considered with their gender identity would cause harm or violation of Title IX. Hey, I'm all for this too, man. It's mostly women that wanted it. Let them get it. So Florida's been vocal in opposing gender identity indoctrination in schools. Too bad their teachers haven't been. Yeah, I'm starting to realize teachers in this country are just horrible no matter where you go, huh? Yeah, from Surgeon General Joseph Lapato issuing health guidance against the medical gender transition of children, the recent prohibition of Medicaid funding gender transition of any age. Under the Parental Rights and Indoctrination Bill, which was passed this year and signed into law by Ron DeSantis, school districts and teachers are not allowed to teach gender identity and to elementary school children, and to keep secrets about children's mental from their parents. Okay. And what's the punishment if they're caught doing that? Like that's the key. Unless there's very strict penalties for doing this stuff, they got no reason to stop. So Florida also passed a bill to protect girls' sports from incursion from biological males who want to participate on the basis of identifying as transgender. Yeah, this I don't agree with, man. We're gonna have to help our strong women, stunning and brave sisters out here. And there's been the location of contentious fights over bathroom access. In February, 11th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled out schools in violation of the Constitution when refusing to allow a biological girl who identifies as transgender to use male-designated bathrooms. I say let her do it, man. If she wants to take that risk.